Rambling into the podcast like we usually do.
That is literally how we always start because we can't not talk about our countdown, which we don't get this time.
Yeah.
So
do you want somebody in the audience to do a countdown for us?
yeah, I think the moment's passed.
7,
So
12,
That's not how you count.
1, 8.
that is how Riverside used to count us in.
That's
so.
true. That's true.
But all right, so for our friend and family who are here, welcome to our live Pod for Good. This is exactly how I thought a morning podcast would go. By the way, I guess we should do our introductions.
Oh.
I am, as always, your chief philanthropod and class clown for justice, wearing the black shirt, Jesse Ulrich.
And I am your Vice Admiral Philanthropod and purple class clown for justice, Chris Miller.
I'm very excited for these shirts, which hopefully people buy, because they were expensive.
They are the nice ones though.
Yep.
So otherwise, Jesse would just be complaining the whole time while he's wearing it.
I would be. The thick cotton Gildan. Get that crap out of here. So
Gildan will never be a sponsor of this podcast.
No. I would say no to their money.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't want. That's true. I wouldn't.
You would not. No.
They would just take their money back at a certain point after I harass them constantly.
Listen, some sponsors pay to get harassed on podcasts.
That's true.
It's a thing.
Why can't we get those sponsors? I'm just asking that question out to the world. So
you can't tell listeners, but I just looked across the audience, and that's how I know that we don't get those kind of sponsors.
So all right, Chris. So as we vamp here, as people slowly show up, for a 9:30 breakfast session. We've been doing this for 3 years now.
Ooh,
3 years.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. How do you feel about the show so far?
Ooh, indifferent? No. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun 3 years. We've got to meet a lot of people. Most of them Jesse had already met, but so I got to meet a lot of people, learn about a lot of cool stuff in Tulsa, about a lot of cool places, a lot of people doing a lot of awesome stuff. And, Jesse and I get to make a fool of ourselves, which is one of our favorite things to do.
It's great, and it's we're making a fool of ourselves, really only to that person, because I usually edit those parts out.
That's true. One day, maybe you can just make a reel of all of the outtakes.
That's true, but then I have to keep track of that, and that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So, if only I still had my intern.
If only.
I miss you, Carter.
Yeah. So what do you think about the show? Since you have to do all the real work, I just show up and look pretty.
I do miss doing the interviews in person.
Yeah.
Those were a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Hopefully I'll get some rugs soon and we can start recording in my house. But I think the show's really good. I mean, I wish more people who told me they listened actually listened, but that's okay. I accept that because that's how podcasts are. So as long as people know that the podcast exists, I feel like we are doing some good.
It does feel like there are thousands more listeners than there
actually are. Yeah.
So
unless they're all sharing the same device. I don't know how this works. So
I appreciate it. At least my wife tells me she doesn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
So, but she often downloads it though.
Yes,
so
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Really, that's all I ask of people. I'm like, you don't even have to listen. Just download on as many devices as possible. So, because I listen to long podcasts, but I know not everyone likes our brand of Marin-esque absurdity.
Yeah. So you're saying we should start doing 15-minute podcasts?
Oh God, no! I can't. You know how hard it is to make a 15-minute podcast?
I know how hard it is to take our nonsense and make it down to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine trying to get it to 15.
I'm still sad. There's 30 good minutes of our conversation with Dan Devey from Gaze in Space that's on the cutting room floor because I was like, this episode's too long.
Did you save it?
I did save it, yeah. I had to save that great Mountain Dew content we had. So. But to answer your question, I think that I'm very happy with how the show's going. I honestly thought after 3 years we'd sort of run out of people to talk to, but I guess that is a sign of how good Tulsa is. So we keep finding new people, and there are people who I've thought about interviewing from the very beginning who we still haven't gotten to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like almost any time I talk to people about this podcast, they always have ideas for people I've never even thought of, doing things that I didn't even know about.
I'm again as the editor of the show and the host, it's fascinating. I'm holding a microphone, which is something I hate editing because people constantly move the microphone closer and farther away from their mouth.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm keeping the sound level constant the whole time for you, Jesse.
There's so much reverb in here. It's a nightmare. I don't care because I'm on stage.
That's right.
I'm on stage and 5 people are here. So, which honestly is more than I thought for this first segment. I'm like, no one's coming to a 9:30 live podcast thing.
No, so, it's fine though.
If there are people standing in the front of the building, which we can't see, come on down.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can even
make
hear
it seem like there's more of a crowd.
Yeah.
Honestly, Jesse and I would just do this in a room together, which we actually do.
If people allowed us to, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we don't need an audience. It just makes us stronger.
It's true. It's true. We take the power of their applause and it makes us even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, because if we do a joke and like 5 people laugh, that's great. 30 people laugh, we're like, we got superhero powers.
Yeah.
So
I assume you've never made 30 people laugh at once.
Oh, rude. You've been in class with me. You know that's not true. So I almost want to work the room of the 5 people who are here, but I won't do that.
So what brings you here today?
Yeah. Where are you from? Tulsa? Cool. So, okay. If we're going to keep doing this and we do this for another 3 years, like I'm always thinking about what the goal of Pod4Good and how it shifts slightly as we continue doing this.
Ooh, we should shift to Pod4Bad, where we just start interviewing villains of Tulsa.
Ooh, I think that'd be even harder to schedule than the good people, because at least people trying to do good.
The bad people are busy.
Yeah, well, no, the good people are also busy, but they'll eventually answer me. Where I think the villains will just ignore me.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We should list by name those villains.
Right now?
Yeah.
I almost immediately said one, and I know you're thinking the exact same one. I was like, is this not the location or space to do that?
Yep. And like, will we have someone like visually represent I-244 as the guest? So, thank you.
Another guest has walked in.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
Does he count?
I mean, he's a warm body.
Yeah,
mostly.
That's true.
Yeah.
What?
Not that warm.
No.
I mean, just warm from like the heat here. So, because again, it's late September in Oklahoma, so it's still kind of hot.
Yeah.
So.
But it's almost fall. A couple days away.
Yep.
And then it immediately changes temperature.
Yep. It immediately gets to just kind of cold.
Yeah. So Jesse, why don't you talk about this cool space we're in?
So we are in the new Holberton, I guess annex, I think is what they're calling the new part. It is very cool. Holberton is a coding school. We're going to have the CEO of it on here soon, and we'll ask her all the questions.
Yeah.
Hopefully ones she hasn't answered before, because that's kind of our goal.
That feels unlikely.
True. Well, listen, we'll try really hard to come up with a very interesting question for her on the fly, which, again, for our listeners, Chris does a very good job of getting very little prep time for guests he hasn't met and asking them really good questions. Like, I know ahead of time who we're talking to.
Yeah.
He always does a really good job of just coming up with questions as we're talking. So
I appreciate that, Jesse. Jesse is really good at talking himself into a question.
Oh yeah, I love meandering my way into a question.
Yeah.
Which again, you the listeners don't hear because I edit that out.
He does. His questions are usually at least 30 to 45 seconds longer than they are when you actually hear them on the podcast.
Well, I like to express that I'm trying to get to a place so they understand the context of the question before I ask it. And I probably don't need to do that, but it's better than just a long string of ums and yas. So,
probably.
Which I would also edit out. So I guess it saves me no time. Listen, I'm not going to edit this one. So if I try to edit this one, I'm just be working on it forever. So this room fails the clap test, but it is a cool space. We got a huge screen behind us.
I'm sorry. What is the clap test?
The clap test is you do a very large clap in a room to see how the echo and reverb is. How quickly the clap sound disappears. So actually not bad. So,
okay. See, there you go.
Thank you, Nora.
Yeah. It is a cool industrial space.
Yep. Like a lot of buildings in downtown. I bet some of it they couldn't change for historical reasons. So.
And why would you want to?
Yeah.
Just to make editing easier for Jesse probably isn't a good enough reason.
Listen, I would love it if the world catered to me more. So I think as we all would.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't.
It caters to you enough.
Does it? Question for the audience. Does it? All right. So we've been doing Pod4Good for 3 years.
Yeah.
People hilariously know that I host and kind of edit Pod4Good. Don't know I run a business of podcast production,
Yeah.
even though I mention it every time, which is another sign that people don't actually listen. But we're not going to turn this into why don't people listen?
Yeah.
Because that is a terrible way to get people to listen. So, but
You should just ask each guest
yeah. So
on the spot, do you listen and why don't you?
Yeah. Are we ready for you? Well, let's bring on our first guest because I think we vamped enough.
Yeah.
Come to the stage, Chris Davis.
Yay. Where's the...
Oh, want me to do it? All right,
Yeah.
hold on.
Hey everyone! Oh wow!
Hype
Gotta have
button,
a sound
everybody.
effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had brought my board, I would have played all sort of sound effects already, which is probably good because
Is that what you do at home? You've got like a whole soundboard that you're
Yeah.
kind of just like on the spot mixing in?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty great. It's easier to do when we have people in person because like virtually, like I'd have to set up a whole thing. But yeah, how's it going?
Good. How often do you guys do live podcasts? Like how often is it in person?
This is our first live in front of an audience sort of
Okay.
podcast. Last year for our second anniversary, we did a live stream
Yeah.
of 5.5 hour long live stream.
Slash fundraiser.
Slash fundraiser for.
I think was that the podathon? I think I remember.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I think I remember seeing
And what's
that.
People paid to have me eat generic mayonnaise, and
Yep.
it was horrible.
Oh man.
Yep, he does not like mayonnaise.
I don't like mayonnaise in the best of situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Always Save mayonnaise is the worst thing I've ever tasted.
And you ate some for the podcast?
I did.
Like a
Even
large
though
chunk of it.
podcasting is an audio medium.
Yeah, well, no, we were
streaming.
We were streaming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes it better.
It was pretty funny to me. What's funny is like looking back on that live stream, I remember every guest we talked to. I don't remember a single thing I said.
The audience rarely does either.
Yeah, well, that's probably better for all of us. So, well, we are here at day 2 of the Spark Summit, put on by the Tulsa Creative Engine. And for the people who say they listen to our podcast, we've had Chris Davis on before talking about this. But after day 1, how are you feeling so far?
I'm feeling good. I just want to say to you, Jesse, it's great to be here talking to an artist
Yes.
who is in his art form.
That's right.
I'm in my
Doing-
oeuvre.
Yes, exactly.
Listen, that conversation has actually been very helpful to me because it sort of,
I love that.
It changed the way I view what I do, and it makes what is difficult for me make more sense now because artists have certain things they're strong at and certain things they are not strong at.
Totally.
And I realize I'm not strong at those. I am strong where artists are strong and not strong where they are not strong. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that.
Yeah,
for real.
I'm not good at running a business. That is what I'm trying to tell you. So we're here in Holberton, which is like the sort of hub of sort of Spark Summit, some panels and sessions and whatnot. And so let's excite the 6 people paying attention right now. Of what are you interested in hearing from today?
I'm gonna actually pull the schedule out on my
yeah.
phone and just
Live schedule commentary. This is what people.
Well,
yeah.
before the schedule pulls up, for
Yes.
sure, most excited at 11 o'clock this morning. There's a hip hop artist named La Russell. La Russell's one of the headliners for the Dreamland Festival, which is the music festival that's happening in conjunction with Spark Summit. So I guess you've kind of like, since you were here yesterday, you've kind of painted a picture to your listeners of what Spark Summit is. Dreamland Festival is the music festival part of that. La Russell is this really great hip hop artist from Vallejo, California. He's performing at Dreamland tonight, but he's on this stage at 11 a.m. right after us in a fireside chat. He's like blowing up this year. Like it's actually, I think we're going to look back in a couple of years and be like, holy crap, we had La Russell here. He's kind of like charting his own path in the music industry, totally independent, really building like a strong fan base, like an online community and an IRL community. One of his cool things is like he built a music venue in his own backyard and started hosting shows there because he didn't want to like work with venues. And he's just like wants to do things on his own terms. So he's going to be here at 11 o'clock talking with Chris Harvey from Blackwood. So I'm really excited about that conversation. If you follow La Russell on Instagram, like he'll post clips of him performing, which are great, but then he'll post all these like sound bites of him in interviews, and they're like equally great. So Excited to have him performing as well as on the conference. And then we've got all day outside. We've got the Cypher 120 day party. Have you ever talked to Ritten Quincy?
I have not.
Oh, you guys gotta meet Ritten Quincy. Do you know what Cypher 120 is?
I do not.
Okay, so Cypher 120 is like kind of a legendary event in our hip hop scene. It started about 10 years ago. It's like a live band open mic. And Ritten is a poet, educator, rapper, singer, like very, very talented guy. He's on a few of the Fire in Little Africa songs as a poet. He created Cypher 120 to really build culture in our city. I think it originated in like 2010, 2011, kind of around the time that the Oil House Collective was coming up and like our hip hop scene was really being birthed. And Cypher 120 was kind of like one of the first like intentional spaces that was created around building community around music and specifically hip hop. So they are kind of like a pillar of the culture. And so they're going to be hosting a day party all day outside. So they'll be featuring a lot of great hip hop artists like First Verse and MC and Thomas Who and Jerica Wortham, Cody Ransom, Sterling Matthews, Quentin Marcellus. That'll be outside on the Holberton stage all day. We've got a really cool tech panel at noon with Tori Burris from Holberton, Patrick Hosford from In Tulsa, and Anita Lai from Atento Capital. There's a Black Tech Street panel with Tyrants and Steph Simon's brother. So Steph's brother, Sean, is a really amazing entrepreneur. He actually just moved back to Tulsa from the Dallas area. So they're doing a Born on Black Tech Street panel.
Nice.
In reference to Steph's album title. We've got like a Web3 panel talking about NFTs in the music industry. We've got a film panel with Travis Collins, who's the head of Forbes Entertainment. We've got some heavy hitters today. And then we actually have 2 state senators coming to join us. There was this really interesting piece of legislation about magic mushrooms that was pushed through the Oklahoma State House earlier this year. And it was these 2 Republican senators that kind of spearheaded the effort. So we're bringing them on to learn more about why they pushed that legislation. It all had to do with mental health benefits for utilizing magic mushrooms. So we're going to hear from the senators why Oklahomans should be interested in that topic. So covering a lot of ground, but it's going to be a good day.
How's it been going with like shows going on and then the trains coming by?
I'm like pro train. Like the train really adds to the vibe in my opinion. Even like last night, like it definitely came by while I think like everyone that performed last night had at least one train go by. But like as an audience member, like, you know, you're right in front of the speaker. So like you hear the music more than the train. And I don't know, there was something about it that I was like, this is like kind of the best thing that could have happened. So
I feel like the train drivers are giving the conductors are giving a little extra horn blast for us too.
No,
so
they crave attention.
Yeah,
they're like at one point. This is literally true. One of the trains like went by, stopped, backed up.
Mm-hmm, that's what they do.
I'm like, what were you like? Did you change your mind? Like,
yeah, no, they're trying to fit themselves into a space. Apparently, I did some research on this after getting stuck behind the train for like an hour here. I was like, why is it going backwards? It took me a while to find out.
They're like, oh shit, I made a wrong turn.
Yeah. Yeah, the one we are near the one entrance, the one street that does not have a bridge over or under the train. So fun times. It's blocked off today though, so it won't be a problem for anybody.
Yeah. But no, the train's cool. I think like the whole vibe out on the street last night was just so cool. We've got really amazing lighting and some outdoor art installations. Alex Taman did these amazing like wooden sculptures that are kind of propped up on the warehouse. It's going to be the 36 degrees north space. And then we've got projections mapped on that screen. Rebecca and Campbell McElwain and 1984 Studios did this really crazy like dome that's like illuminated and it's like a barn and there's like a vintage truck out there. There's just a lot going on after dark that I think people were really enjoying last night, and I think tonight will be even bigger.
So one short question, and then I'll let Chris ask a question. So people have been debating what they want to call this part of town, this sort of stretch. Do you have a favorite?
Is there like, are there finalists? Can
I don't know. You can ask Shai because he seems to know the list of ones he doesn't like, and so
I think I want to say I think Shai may have said Innovation Row. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think he likes Innovation Station, but everyone else kept saying everyone else kept saying Innovation District, which either one is fine. So
Innovation Station, it feels a little like Disney World in a way, but like I like it because there's literally a train. There
is a train.
So it's like
it's true. It works.
Some things just work.
I think I do like the word innovation. We talk about innovation a lot with Spark Summit and the fact that a lot of the work with Tulsa Creative Engine, we're trying to represent artists and creatives as an important component of innovation. A lot of times when we talk about innovation, it's just tech or it's just science or it's just business. So one of our philosophies is that innovation is actually the intersection of tech, creativity, and business. So I'm into innovation, but and I'm into naming things. I think we definitely do need to get a good name. Yeah. So I'm glad that we're starting this conversation here at Spark Summit.
Yeah, and rhyming is always good for a district.
It makes it easier to remember. That's why rhyming exists. So,
what's the interaction been with between Dreamland and Spark Summit?
So basically, yesterday there were more or less two different events. So everything for Spark Summit was here at Holberton yesterday, panels and breakouts inside, art installations all around the street outside, at Asimio, at Aru Entertainment. So everything for Spark really was here yesterday. And then we hosted our own kind of music stage last night featuring primarily artists from the TCE Accelerator program. So we just wrapped a 6-week accelerator where we had a cohort of 9 artists go through business training and working with mentors. We gave each of our artists a $5,000 grant at the end of that accelerator. And then last night we got to feature 4 of those artists on our stage. And then we had Combsy close it out. So that was what we did yesterday. Dreamland had a whole vibe going on Main Street. I was talking to Cassidy from Holberton this morning. She went out there last night and said it was like super fun, super crazy environment. We had they had a headliner named Father from out of town. So Vanguard and Hunt Club and Sound Pony were really active last night for Dreamland. And then today it's kind of like the two events converge. We've got more panels and breakouts happening here at Holberton all day. We've got the Cypher 120 day party, but then after 5, Dreamland kind of takes over, and we've got again La Russell performing, and then the Queen, the Legend, Rhapsody closing out the stage. So it's kind of like Friday was 2 different events, and Saturday is the merge.
It was fun hearing people sound check yesterday afternoon. Like they were sound checking with such passion. I was kind of worried they were performing and no one was out there, and I was like, that can't be right. So, but like,
have you ever been to? I've been to shows before where like the sound check happens and people are clapping and the band's like, this is just sound check. Like,
yeah,
we'll be back in a few minutes.
We were just messing around here. Yeah. So some people are just excited to hear people. So I have no idea what time we're at. So I don't know if it's time to bring on our next guest. What time is it?
It's not. I've got 9:57.
All right, we got 3 more minutes.
It's your show, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It's always good to check the time in the middle of.
I'm gonna edit that out.
Show.
Listen, it's the people's show.
You can't edit life, Jesse.
Yeah. If only. You can. It's just really, really hard.
That reminds me. Have you watched this show, The Rehearsal, on HBO?
I haven't. I've heard of it, though.
You should watch it. That's all I'm going to say. It's irrelevant to this conversation, but it is talking. You said you can't edit life, and that's kind of thematically aligned with the show. You should check it out.
Put that on a shirt. That'll be on the next shirt.
Yeah, there you
that
go.
And something about the city of Broken Arrow will be on the next shirt.
Yeah.
By the way, we have shirts now. So Pod4Good finally has merch. Something that every other podcast does within the first 3 months of existing. It took me 3 years to do.
Yeah.
To get some Pod4Good shirts, but I've got them now. So
that's right.
Eventually, you'll be able to buy them on the internet. That's going to take time. So, like all things, it's just work.
Eventually, technology will catch up, and you'll be able to.
Yeah. Right. I'm like, can I pay someone no money to do this for me? The answer is no. So, I mean, so I guess what is next for the Tulsa Creative Engine after this?
Honestly, kind of just getting into, we've been really busy this summer. We've launched a lot of programs. We launched, like I said, the Accelerator. We launched our community recording studio, Spark Studios. We have been really scaling up Spark Summit, which has kept us really busy all summer. And then we've got our monthly events, Frequency and Select Showcase. So it's been a really active year. I'm actually excited to get into the fall and kind of get back into the dreamy, visiony space of like, what does next year look like? How can we build on our momentum? What are the new programs? How can we, what do we need to continue? Things like that. So I'm personally just looking forward to, just dreaming up what's next. We're definitely getting into visual art stuff. We've emphasized music in a lot of our programs this year, but we want to develop similar types of support and resources for visual artists, and just have a lot of ideas for things like, how do we evolve the showcase that we do with Fansub? How do we evolve frequency? Like maybe we do 2 cohorts of Accelerator next year. So looking forward to some space in our schedules for the fall to kind of think about everything and be intentional moving into next year.
And where do you see Spark Summit going?
I mean, I feel really good about what we've done this year, and I think it's gonna just keep getting bigger and better. I think that one of the so last year was like super pilot of Spark Summit. It was about like a day and a half festival. We had a few, I think we had like 5 or 6 panels. This year we had like 30 panels. We flew in like 10 different out of town guests. So I think that that's the most exciting thing to me, is bringing in really cool people from outside of Tulsa and giving them the opportunity to just like hang out and be with us in Tulsa, meet the people in our community that are, doing similar type of work or work that's aligned with what they're doing. I think that like, on paper we're bringing them in to do a panel, but it's really like we're bringing them in to like hang out in Tulsa for 4 or 5 days and build relationships with the people in our city. So we've got like 10 people here from out of town. I would love to have just, even more out of town guests, more specialized guests in tech, music, art. And then, again, just really allowing Spark Summit to be a place where Tulsans, leaders in Tulsa and leaders from around the world can come together and have forward-thinking conversations. So yeah, I think it'll just continue to evolve in that way, and Holberton's the perfect space to do it. So I think we'll keep doing it right here at Innovation Station. And
choo choo. All right. Well, I know you have Spark Summit Day 2 stuff you need to deal with. So
Sure.
We are going to transition to our next guest.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. Congratulations on 3 years of your podcast.
Thank you.
I know that it's work to do a podcast every single week or every other week or whatever the cadence is. You guys should be proud of what you're building and what you're doing, and I applaud you for your work.
I appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Woo! She came from behind the stage.
Came out the stage. Well,
so
I've spent the
professional.
last day and a half telling all of our guests to please not jump off the front of the stage, so I figured I would lead by example. Hi, friends.
Hi.
Hello.
For the people who are listening to this later, this is Libby Edinger. Edinger. All right, nailed it. Editing. What'd your husband call you? The CEO?
The CEO.
The CEO of Holberton.
Of Holberton School, Tulsa. Yes.
So we are in your new space. Are you happy? Are you happy with the new space?
Thrilled.
We're just gonna stop with, are you happy?
Yeah, are you happy?
Are you happy?
Yeah, are you happy in life?
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is now a therapy session.
Yeah.
I am very, very happy with the space. I think when we started this school now almost 3 years ago with students, we had like 40 students on that first day, and there was a handful of staff members, and it was this kind of small ragtag group in many capacities. Well, those students have now graduated. Our staff has ballooned up to almost 20 people. And so we were just like running out of space. And I like to tell people that the fire code on your building is not the same as the limit for a comfortable learning environment. And so for us to have the new building, we're adding 17,000 square feet of space to give students a space to learn, which is excellent.
That's awesome. I do have one important question. Why was Jesse not accepted when he applied for it?
Did you apply for Holberton?
I did. I already asked Oboom what happened. There was one question. I answered it too many times apparently. So it's fine.
We have quite the application process. I will say it just got a little bit of zhuzhing up. So if folks have applied and want to apply again, I would recommend
Now
them.
it's personal, so I'm going to try it again.
As you should.
So I know from being in some of the other buildings around here that there's some things you can't change because of like the Historical Preservation Society thing. Is there something in this building that you were like, I would like to fix this, but I can't?
Not really. I love the history of the building. You get all of the original brick. You get the ceilings. Actually, throughout campus, there are some original light fixtures and some that we have replicated to look like the original light fixtures. So trying to pull thematically that history here. But what we teach is software development. So then you've got this really cool juxtaposition of like the new and the tech and the innovative. Thank you, Chris, for teeing that word up for me. And that I like those things being in tension. We do have a second building. So our campus is actually just 2 buildings next to each other. And it would have been nice to connect the 2. TBD on whether that's possible someday.
So for our listeners that don't know about Holberton, can you tell us about what it is and how it works?
Quick pitch.
Yeah.
Holberton is a software engineering school. We're located here in downtown Tulsa, and we emphasize learning by doing. So instead of sitting in a lecture hall and being taught our students start with heavily project-based learning and peer-based learning so that not only are they able to really master the programming languages for themselves, but frankly, so we build the muscle of problem solving, which is something we know is really critical for the workforce. The other thing that's important to know about us is that we are a vocational school. So instead of taking the, let's call it an 8 to 10 week boot camp route, our students are with us for 20 months. And that depth of content and depth of time means that the programs we can offer are far more specialized. So students who come through Holberton can learn things like augmented reality or full stack web development or blockchain or machine learning, and are really equipped for the jobs of today that frankly we're starting to see ramp up here in Tulsa.
I just want to give you props on your microphone positioning as you talk. It was great. As the editor, very happy. So you yourself don't have a background in computer programming, correct?
I do not code.
So what is it like running a school of code learning as someone who has a familiarity with the topic, but not the sort of the ingrained knowledge of learning it yourself?
I had a leg up because my job prior to this was working for a software company. And I was on the early team there, helped launch the beta product, and ended up spending a considerable amount of my time hiring or helping teams to hire and getting to know developers and work with technical hires, I think equipped me for this job. And then frankly, it's just a lot of memorization. You're like, I know that this student is going into pointers and loops. Do I know what that does? A little bit, but I know it's followed by this project and this project. And so you get really good at the memorization. And I have said someday I will take one of our classes or pick up a terminal and learn a little bit.
Do you get students who are interested in coding but like literally don't know where to start? Like they get in, they pass the test I can't pass. And, you know, like there's so many programming languages, there's so many directions people can go. Is there almost a stage where they just get to explore what is out there?
A little bit. So the first 8 months of our program, you are all in coursework together. So instead of having to make the decision on day one that I want to be an augmented reality engineer, you have the capacity to spend those first 8 months not only really learning the fundamentals of coding yourself, but getting to know all the upperclassmen and asking them, what are they interested in? What do they want to do? Frankly, we now have alumni, which is something you take for granted when you launch a school because there are no older students for your brand new class to turn to. I see a grad of ours, Viet, in the audience. And so I know not only what Viet studied in school, but I also know what he does now. And our hope is to really try and build out that alumni community or really continue a relationship with grads. One, so that if we've got a student who's looking to go do a really similar thing, that we can make those connections. But also because we hope that there's a continuing growing class of this talent pool for Tulsa. And for our students to be able to be at the forefront of that is really exciting.
So technology and the environment is obviously evolving very rapidly. So how do you keep your curriculum up to date when what is new at the beginning of an 18-month program is completely different at the end of it?
There's a couple of different ways that we've been grappling with this. And if I'm honest, not only do I not code, but I was not in higher education prior to this job. So both curveballs. There's a couple of ways I think that we've been trying to set ourselves up for success and want to continue to aim for. One is encouraging our students to go learn what drives them. Go take that LinkedIn Learning badge. Go get coffee and offer to intern for someone. Go sit in on a Techlahoma panel, because we recognize that we can't possibly be everything for everyone for every language. And even when we talk to an employer, we really hone in on the way that we teach and the way that the learning style develops at Holberton. Because, and I heard a student who's volunteering with us for Spark Summit say it to someone yesterday. She's convinced that if she was thrown a new programming language, it would take her about a week to get it mastered. So how do you convey that to an employer, regardless of if someone has a 2.0 version or a 3.0 version? So that's one thing. The second thing we've learned is that how we talk about our coursework matters. If I put that someone is going to learn an exact language into a course description, well, we have a license and we have to teach to that license. And so we have to teach that exact language. And so what we've taken a step back to do now is say, what at a conceptual level do we know is required? And then as we run projects, and it may be every single time we run the project, the software is getting updated, and that allows us to be more nimble. So there's a systems piece in there as well. And then finally, we are thrilled at the response we've had from local employers. I mean, from the first day that I had a business card and was walking around town saying, hey, we're about to do this thing. We won't have students for 20 months, but can you talk to us? We've had a good response from area CTOs and CIOs and hiring managers. And I'm really excited that now, a couple of years under our belt, we'll be able to launch a true advisory committee and have local employers for each of our programs advising on the curriculum, so that even if the curriculum turn isn't every single project, as we think about what 5 to 10 years looks like, we know that we can keep up with the pace of change.
This is like a two-part question where you can take it whichever one sounds more funny, which is there are so many programming languages out there. Is there one that you just, even though you don't necessarily know it, dislike, or two, have to include but know that there isn't really a path to a job via that language?
Yes. We make our students spend the first 4 months with us in C programming. It is not something that many of them will use day in and day out as a language, but it is a phenomenal starting place because you can get someone to understand conceptually what's happening in the terminal, conceptually what they're trying to do, before layering on other languages. So I like that we start in C. It also means that all of our students who maybe had a little bit of prior experience, and I mean, very, very few have ever written a line of code before coming to school with us, but the ones that maybe were doing HTML or like editing their MySpace page back in the day, C is such a departure that it kind of puts everyone onto a level playing field that you have to learn and grow together. So that's the big one. I also really, really like that our capstone at the very end of the program has no technical requirements attached to it. It's kind of a vague, please use the skills that you have learned. And so we have had students cross-pollinate across their specializations, where they've launched a really cool company called Hero Analytics, which is augmented reality analytics. So there's machine learning and database management and the actual experience of AR and VR. We've also had students say, you know what, there's a company in town and they use this stack. And I know because they came and talked to us as students, and I'm going to go learn Rust. We don't teach Rust, but they knew that it was something that they wanted to learn. And they went out, learned that language, incorporated it into their capstone, and then turned around and pitched themselves to that company. So as much as we can take credit for building some of the systems, I think the ingenuity of the students that come through our doors deserve equal, if not more, credit.
I think Ruby on Rails is it's the funniest programming language I've heard of. Like they usually always seem to have some sort of fun name involved, and I'm always curious where those names come from.
If you want to come visit campus, we would love to meet anyone and everyone, give you a tour, and you will find that all of our conference rooms are now named after programming languages.
Nice.
And there was a fight between our academic staff, who are software engineers by trade, about which languages could or should be included.
Do you have one named Python?
We do have Python.
Yes.
Python is always the one that one, people suggest you learn first, and two, has funny bits in it, so that's entertaining.
We do have Python. We have Git, JSON, React. Some of them are frameworks. Some of them are languages. And then I'll make the plug that Holberton, our namesake, is after Betty Holberton. She was a software engineer during World War II, worked on the ENIAC computer, invented a lot of things that like technical software engineers still use today, which is very cool. When we added the new building and we were adding all these languages, we remembered that one of Betty's friends, Ada Lovelace, is also a programming language. Like Ada is a terminology that's used in the field. And so we now have a Betty Holberton conference room and a boardroom named after Ada Lovelace. Kind of
very cool.
Nice little Easter egg.
That's cool. So why was it important to why is the Spark Summit important to Holberton?
For me, there's a couple of reasons why Spark is something that not only did we want to come back to for a second year, but I'm just really eager to see us continue to pursue for years to come. The first is it's an opportunity for us to change the narrative that software engineers or coders or programmers are not folks that are antisocial, sitting in a basement, glued to a computer screen, the kind of Mark Zuckerberg-esque image.
Chris and I have no idea what that looks like. So.
It's creative. It's collaborative. It's an opportunity to build something, but instead of painting or sculpting or woodworking, you are crafting something that lives in the internet. Or maybe we've had a student go program a robot. Like maybe the code that you deploy actually has impact in the physical world. And why I like the ability for us to put on something like this in our space is for us to set the tone that we are looking for that creative class to come to school with us, or not even come to school with us, be engaged in this technology sector and ecosystem that we are building, because I think we would do ourselves a disservice to build software developers in a vacuum. And then the second thing is it's an opportunity for us to meet new people. The school is only 3 years old. We enroll almost constantly. We have 3 start dates a year, but we're always looking for people who are interested. And truth be told, the reason that it was a very easy yes for us this year is even though last year was a pilot, like we not only met some folks that were interested, but we recruited a whole student, and she's a student tutor and is crushing it at her job, and will graduate from Holberton. And so even just having like one of those opportunities is super cool for us.
So who in Tulsa is like the sort of biggest employers of Holberton graduates so far?
So to date, we have graduated 74 people, and 35% are working in remote jobs. So those employers are all over the place, and I could start to rattle off the names, but you might not know any of them. There are a few like household names. We've got a student at CVS, a student at American Airlines. From the local side, it's really all over the place. I mean, there are, what we would call tech companies here that are employing students. Consumer Affairs is a great example of that. But we have a couple of students at Bank of Oklahoma Financial. We have students very much in the aerospace industry, which is increasingly dependent on software. So SimStar, Flight Safety, L3 Harris all have hired graduates.
Very cool.
So might as well tell our listeners. So how would they connect with Holberton and apply and get started?
And while you're answering that, when you're done with that, answer the deal that people sort of get for going to Holberton, Tulsa specifically.
So you can find us at holbertontulsa.com. On there, you can see all of our programs that we offer, the start dates that we have. There's a nifty little YouTube video of me walking around campus giving a little song and dance so you can see the tour. We would love to see you so you can sign up for a tour there. You'll also find lots of financial information. Something that we're really proud to offer is the ability for students to delay their tuition payments until they graduate and have secured employment. It's called an income share agreement. And the gist of it is that we allow a student to pay a percentage of their income after they have graduated and secured employment above a minimum income of $40,000. So if you're above that, you're paying a percentage of your income to the school for a set window of time. It's 3.5 years.
And isn't there like if you stay in Tulsa, you get something else?
We do also partner with the George Kaiser Family Foundation and the Schusterman Family Foundation on a living assistance program. So it's separate from tuition, but eligible students can apply once they've gotten admitted to Holberton and actually be eligible for up to $1,500 a month. They can put that, no questions asked, towards living. If someone got the dream job and moved out to Dallas, it's easy to rag on Dallas. Boo, Dallas. We would have them pay back that living assistance, except that it would go into the fund to the next student. If they stay in Tulsa while they're here and working those first number of years, we actually waive repayment on that entirely. So yes, our goal is to first and foremost give people an opportunity to learn this skill. I think our secondary goal, and the thing that gets me also very excited, is the prospect of building something here in Tulsa.
Listeners of Pod4Good know Chris and I's thoughts on the city of Dallas and its terribleness. It's a great idea, and I love the idea that you don't have to pay people back until you get a job in said field. That makes a lot more sense than the sort of university model where you're paying for a degree that may or may not help with your job. Not that college is bad, college is great, but especially in today's world with changing jobs, it seems like a much more efficient way of letting people sort of learn a new skill and switch careers.
And I think that Tulsa is actually ripe for this type of schooling. One of our biggest disadvantages over the last several decades is that we do not have in our city a public four-year university. We have great pathways now from community college into your junior and senior year at one of the flagship schools across the state. We have an outstanding, two outstanding private schools, ORU and TU, to choose from, but there's no public university here. And so I think for the city of Tulsa to invest in the talent needed for us to even think about calling ourselves a tech hub, we need to innovate and think about the different ways we can get the workforce trained, both our existing workforce, which right now, the average age of a Holberton student is 30. So a vast majority of our students have pivoted from something else and are learning to code. And now I think we also get to do what is going to be no small feat, but think about what the folks in the K-12 system right now are looking for as they graduate. And I would give a huge shout out that Holberton is not the only option for folks interested in tech. There's a new Tulsa Community College cyber program that has an attached apprenticeship. There's a great group in town called Satellite, and they train people who have sales experience to do tech sales, which is remarkably lucrative as an industry, and something, frankly, you can do remote. And so that dynamic of, hey, we've not got a public university, but we need to figure out the ways we can train our current workforce and our future workforce, actually leaves some room for perhaps more innovation.
There's also, for the K through 12, there's Urban Coders Guild, who just celebrated their 5th anniversary.
5th anniversary.
So, yes.
They've trained over 300 students coding, and those, I got to volunteer with one of their demo days once. These middle school and high school students are remarkable. They're programming apps. They're programming in Unity already. Like they're really, really in the thick of it.
Of the two of us, Chris is the only one who's actually learned a programming language. Was it C++?
I learned several, but yeah, C++, Visual Basic, Pascal. I don't even know I don't think people do that anymore. And then a lot of SQL. And now I'm trying to learn some R and Python at work.
So if you go next door to our other campus, you'll see that there are 2 conference rooms next to each other. There is SQL and no SQL. And there are a lot of little Easter eggs throughout the building.
I love it. Listen, There's so much room for nerd humor in this space, and I appreciate it. So like, just the clarification question for me. So there's C++, and there's C++.
Someone else more technical in the audience could probably answer that. There's also C#.
Really?
Which Tulsa is a heavily C# town, except that people are using it not in the way that we typically teach, which our C# students are doing like really cool virtual reality
interesting
visualizations. So that is truly the extent of my technical knowledge. I've just poured out all of it for you.
No, I'm amazed anything works, considering all the different languages that then have to talk to each other to get things to work.
I have a friend who runs product development for a company that literally just sells APIs. They sell business to business, and they just sell the connective tissue, the digital connective tissue, from one website to another. It's a whole industry.
Actually, all right, I just came up with another question. So there's a lot of energy being put into like these no-code coding type of applications. Like, where does that come into in sort of this sort of training that you might do here? I
am so for low code and no code options as a vehicle into the industry. I think I would say plenty of our students may have started that way. But that tinkering, that like exposure is really great. And if someone wants to jump in and make this their career, it's an interesting starting point. It certainly won't get you to be a full stack software engineer employed at one of the big buildings behind us downtown. But it's an interesting place to start. It's also a phenomenal option for the musicians, the visual artists, the other people in this ecosystem over the course of Spark Summit that may not have the money to go hire a developer, may decide that they don't want to learn to code, but they're wanting to leverage technology to help propel their art, or propel the business that runs their ability to do art. And so that piece, I think, is really compelling.
Well, someone has to program those no-code and low-code things. And so that's even more interesting to me, because someone is coding something to make it very user-friendly for somebody to make their own sort of shortcut or automation or what have you. And I'm like, that seems even harder to me than just programming a program to work.
We did have a visual artist panel yesterday stamp of approval on Canva. So I feel like I have to sit here and say, yes, use the prefabricated websites. The biggest hurdle, I think, is believing that you have any capacity to build something for yourself. Like the ability to build, regardless of how you're doing it, whether you're from scratch designing the HTML or using an out of the box option. It's getting more people to believe they are capable of building things online that is going to help propel us forward.
Do you have a room where people who like to just yell at their computer as they're trying to fix a problem, like they go to this particular room that's like soundproofed?
You can go out onto the street. That's fine. Onto, what did Chris call it?
Innovation station.
I really don't
Choo-choo.
like that, but that's just me.
What's your preferred term?
I
Let's start a fight.
I don't know what the qualifier should be or the descriptor should be, but I do like the word district. I mean, the rest of the city of Tulsa uses that terminology. And what my hope for this block is not just that it's a place for tech and a place for innovation to happen, but that it is known as that place and that people feel welcome coming in. And so some of the projects that not all of them have been announced that are going to continue to inhabit these warehouse spaces and get transformed include some things that aren't techie. We have bar concepts, restaurant concepts, like that matters. We need foot traffic here. I want someone to like go to dinner, walk past Holberton and be like, what is this? Oh, and there's a virtual reality gaming cafe. And so that's my hope, that like the name has purpose, not just for like planting the flag and saying we do tech here. Although that it is what we do. A lot of tech here in this building. But that it's something that can be known and that new people can discover.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I think we're running short, but we've got one more guest to bring on.
Thanks, folks.
Do we have one more guest? Oh.
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to get your...
The 5-minute counter we were given did not start.
Well, yes, I think they were waiting since we still had a guest to come
Oh,
on.
nice. Appreciated.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
It's really hard to get Jesse to stop talking when he gets on a roll.
how
He does
dare
not pick.
you,
He does not pick up
sir.
on cues when you're trying to like
I picked
wink
up their,
at him.
I picked
and-
up their work cues. I didn't know what the cues meant. So, so for our third guest here, we are joined Michael from Fansub, which until yesterday I did not know was a local company. So this is exciting. So, Michael, say hi to everybody.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate you guys for having me on.
So tell us what Fansub is.
Yeah, for sure. So, Fansub, we're building essentially the first all-in-one platform to help artists, venues, fans, and organizers essentially discover, right? But the long-term vision is to be that all-in-one stop, right? That new home where if I'm an artist, if I'm a venue, if I'm a promoter, and I want to reach the next kind of tier, if you will, of my career, I go to Fansub, and they're going to help me manage my booking, my marketing, my community, and building dependable revenue sources.
So how did Fansub get started?
So good and funny story, right? So
We love those.
right after the pandemic happened, right? Our founder and CTO, former NFL football player Brandon King, who later transitioned into tech, seen the engagement problem, right? So you go on social media, you have 5,000 followers, right? I put out an Instagram post and maybe 2,000 people are going to see it. Maybe like 100 people are actually going to convert where I want them to go. So he's seen that problem and he was looking for a fix for it. Then the pandemic hit, and now particularly artists, 90% of the revenue streams are cut. So he had this vision for this all-in-one tool, particularly from the live streaming and marketing side. So he starts putting together a prototype, and I'm a former artist manager and booking agent. So, he puts out a tweet. He's from Atlanta, I'm from Chicago. He's like, hey, I need a booking agent. So I reply to the tweet. We have a 5-hour conversation about, what the vision is and creator empowerment and advocacy. Next thing you know, he brings me on as a co-founder. And then, we're testing some stuff, throwing some shows. And I am a massive advocate of up and coming artists. Like, I prefer to find the artists when they're at like 1,000 monthly listeners rather than the guy who's at like, Drake's level, right? So I knew of this guy called Cam James for years. He was out of Atlanta, and we ended up booking him, and he's actually sitting right back there in the crowd. We brought him on, and we just seen all of the skills that he brought, right? Former Georgia Tech grad, programmatic advertiser, marketer, cinematographer. We later brought him onto the team, and then later our CEO, Chris Davis. And since then, it's just been all testing and iteration. We were putting together a pitch deck, literally like our second ever investor pitch, Dominic Artist. He ran an accelerator program called Act Tulsa. So we pitched to him, and he was like, hey, you got 2 weeks to move to Tulsa. And at the time, we were like, okay, well, what's in Tulsa? What are we doing? Where are we going? And we just decided it was the best move for the company. And we ended up making that move out here with like a half-baked product, if you will. And Tulsa came kind of like our playground. We, were thrown into this ecosystem in a very favorable manner. And, really we're allowed to just test and iterate. And on top of that, right, we just seen how rich the arts community is here, right? Coming from Chicago, I wasn't sure what to expect. I get here and I see artists like Dr. View and Lex and KO, who are some of the best like lyricists I've ever seen and are creating like true rich content. And just decided Tulsa is the perfect place for us to incubate.
So for the people who like registered to come to the Spark Summit and got to see Fansub maybe for the first time, what would you tell them is, what does Fansub offer specifically like for the users that some of the other websites do not offer?
Big thing for us, right, is we're all about like creating engaging experiences, but like we're also genuine people trying to create genuine experiences, right? You can go to an Eventbrite and go get a ticket for sure. But the disconnect there is like Eventbrite doesn't care about that artist or that organizer. We truly do. And on top of that, no disrespect or shade to Eventbrite, but I think our experiences are a lot better than Eventbrite's, right? Like we personally are in the field ourselves throwing these events, right? Like Chris was talking about it earlier. We host Select Showcase. Select Showcase is a monthly showcase designed to highlight up and coming artists in Tulsa. And it's all about creating experiences, right? Like 2 months ago, we had a rock and hip hop show. where literally we had some like grunge and like ragey rock band, and then we threw some like boom bap hip hop artists on the same card. It makes no sense on paper, but when you get there, it's a great experience. So the big thing that we can provide today, the thing that really sets us apart, is one, we care. We're actually trying to create the tools to push these artists and organizers forward. And then on the other side of that, like I said, we're right here. So we're building.
Very cool.
So when you're supporting the artists and the venues at the same time, I mean, does that create any conflicts for you, or how do you resolve those when there might be differences in the vision of what they want?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And in full transparency, we're still trying to figure it out. But the big thing that I love that we're already seeing in terms of like the value is discovery, right? You can go to Fansub right now and see creator events, and you can see venue hosted events. And if we are able to figure out how to streamline these tools and the platform for both users, I think this creates a super cool intersection of this all in one hub for artists, creators, and fans.
I honestly don't know if I'm getting cues from behind me about whether we should wrap up or not. Okay.
I was just looking at you.
Okay. See? I'm normally so great at reading people's cues. Do you have a favorite venue in town so far?
It's a great question. Transparently, I think there's bias to this, but I think it's got to be Mercury Lounge, only because of the environment that we're able to create for Select. Mm-hmm. I think that they're like super diverse in the talent that they promote. Like literally, you'll go there on a Wednesday night and they'll have like an old country band, and then you'll go there on like a Friday night and it's like a trap hip hop artist, right? So like they're all over the spectrum, but I think they're creating this diverse environment that we want to see in Tulsa, right? And really being able to expand to multiple different demographics. So it's got to be Mercury, but again, there's probably some bias in that.
Yeah. Plus, they've got their bluegrass brunch, which is a lot of fun.
Don't tell Bobby this, but I have yet to make it to one. I need to. It's been on my, I swear to God, it literally lives on my calendar. I just have yet to make it to one.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Tulsa?
A year, but with some grace, right? When we first got here, we were only supposed to be here for 3 months. We left from like November to January as we were like figuring it out. So like truly integrated into the community probably since like January, but in full totality about a year.
So other than, the bands and the artists and the venues you deal with, what else have you learned and discovered that you enjoy about Tulsa?
It's the community for sure. I think Tulsa's community is completely unmatched. I've worked in like multiple co-working spaces, but we're up at 36 degrees north. And like just seeing the collaboration that happens in that building to me is inspiring. It's like literally if I have a question, I can walk down the hall and ask any of these other startup founders. So like the startup community here in Tulsa is completely unparalleled in my experience. And it's a super special time to be here because everybody's like supporting and like building collectively, which is something I don't think you see in a lot of other cities, right? I go back home to Chicago. It's not that. I go get a coffee and I'm lucky to have a conversation with any of the other companies in that co-working space. So Tulsa's community is definitely a special one, and we're happy to be a part of it, truly.
Yeah. So looking forward 5 years from now, what does Fansub look like?
That's a great question, but I'll say this. The true vision for Fansub is we want to be known as the place to get discovered and to discover, right? For a fan, you want to know what's going on a Friday or Saturday night, I'm just going to go to Fansub because I know they have all of the coolest events in every town. And for an artist, being able to go to Fansub to essentially find paid opportunities, find that engaged audience, and essentially grow your reach and fan base. On the other side of that, though, and one thing I'm like super excited to figure out is, like I said, I'm a former artist manager, booking agent, A&R, and it's like I've seen firsthand there is no path for a creator in this industry, right? There's no 1 through 6 step to go from I'm making music in my mother's basement to I'm touring with Drake, right? That just trial and error until I hope, fingers crossed, I figure it out. What we're really passionate about doing is helping create that path. So I want to see you come to Fansub. There's 6 steps. You do these 6 steps, you're going to get to Fansub's tier 2. Then you do these 10 steps, you get to Fansub tier 3. And along the way, we're showing you how to legitimize your business, scale, and actually turn this dream into a sustainable career.
It's very cool. I know Fansub is where you can get tickets to for Fest, as we talked to Carter Combs recently. So I feel like a lot of Tulsa events are going to be on Fansub soon. So I'm happy for you. And by the way, beautiful looking website. I'm always amazed at new websites that I'm like, oh, they didn't think about this like color scheme or how it's going to look. Everything looks just very nice and clean. And so thanks for talking with us today.
Yeah. No, thank you for having us on. And really quick, just to address that, because I'm being honest, you just made my heart smile. Because you look at all these other ticketing websites, and they look like they're from the 2000s.
Yeah.
And we take great pride in that. So thank you very much.
I was like, this looks good.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Michael, and best of luck, and get to that brunch. So,
will do. I appreciate you guys again for having me on. Great meeting y'all.
Thank you, and thanks for helping us close out the podcast.
Yeah, Fansub.
Yeah.
So, well, Chris, we have 30 seconds left. Counting down. How do you think it went?
It could have been worse. Got a chance to make fun of you, which is always fun. And
I know you enjoy that.
I do.
So,
yeah.
Be okay. Got a name drop as if it always accidentally happens at least once per podcast.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think we should keep talking until it says 0.
Oh,
right.
So just like randomly ramble.
I'm curious. It's going to buzz at us. It's going to flash.
I think probably nothing.
Oh, well, that's disappointing.
You get your button ready. You can buzz us out, Jesse.
All right.
And
we're done. All right, we're done. Thanks, everybody.